Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
It is our basic human right to be forgotten.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis.
So last episode we talked about some of the basics of police training and how police are taught to abuse and brutalize people, and how they're taught to see normal human behavior as suspicious, deceptive, or threatening. If you want to learn about that, I suggest you listen to the first part. In this part B, we're going to learn about some of the figures within police training. Some of the people that spend their whole careers, their whole year, 300 days a year on the road, traveling from police department to police department, training police officers, how to think and how to act on the job. You'll be shocked at some of the things they're teaching men and women to do to citizens. Tune in.
For my entire adult life, I spend more time away from my loved ones than I ever spent with them. And I knew all they ever had to do was pick up the phone and dial 3 digits. And somebody like you would show up to fight, and yes, if need be, die for my loved ones while I was gone. And I need to say something you ought to hear a lot more often. Thank you. Thank you for manning the ramparts of our civilization with courage and honor in a dark and desperate time. Thank you for taking and keeping those violent people off the street. Anybody here from prison, jail, probation, parole? Because I honor you. I publicly honor you. You look in the eyes of scary people every day. You know the world's a better place because they're behind bars, and we thank you for what you do. Thank you for watching our sick and covering our back while we're over there. Thank you for being the front line of defense in the war on terror. Thank you for going to harm's way every day that others may live. Thank you. You should hear those words a lot more often. Second, I want to tell you this. Believe in who you are. Believe in what you do. The next time you put the cuffs on that violent offender, you, the people you train, the people you supervise, put the cuffs on that violent man. He's kicking and screaming and spitting and cursing. He's got a rap sheet along his arms. Give the evil eye. You look at him, you say, this is not a nice man. The world is a better place. He's got my cuffs on. Yeah, maybe some slicky lawyer will get him off tomorrow. There are 2.5 million that slicky lawyer didn't get off. The world will come unglued if they weren't there. On your way home that night, do this for me. On your way home that night, just park your vehicle on the overpass for a minute. Step out of your vehicle. Look out on your city. Look at your citizens going about their lives. And know deep in your gut that today, at the risk of your life, you made their world a better place, whether they know it or not. Then walk up that bridge rail. Put your hands on the rail. Look out on your city and let your cape blow in the wind.
Now I'm going to talk about figures. Like, these are people that go from police department to police department all year long and train cops. And I'm going to tell you about some of the things they teach them. So this is they go through regular training and then they get little refreshers of these guys that I'm going to talk about. Can you cue up the first David Grossman video?
It's ready when you are, boss.
So this is a quote of David Grossman's. I am convinced from a lifetime of study, if you fully prepare yourself, in most cases, killing is just not that big of a deal.
Yuck.
For a mature warrior who has prepared their self, mind, body, and spirit for a lifetime of killing, a mature warrior whose killing represents a clear and present danger to others, it's just not that big of a deal.
How many people has he killed?
Fucking zero.
Killing is always a big deal.
Yeah.
If you're removing a human life from this plane of existence,
Remember,
that is a big deal. Always.
Cops aren't supposed to shoot guilty people either.
Yeah. I don't care what they've done. They have to go through the legal system. And, like, I'm not endorsing the legal system either, but I'm sure hell's not endorsing, like...
Summary execution?
Yeah. Yeah, and like, to go along with what Richard was saying, like, David Grossman hasn't seen any combat. He's a fraud. Like he talks it up like he's like the expert on killing and how to train people on kill, but he hasn't killed anybody. He doesn't know what it feels like.
I'm the Predator, and I've got all this training and experience and taking human lives. No, he hasn't fucking done anything. He's bullshit.
Yeah. Now, Dave Grossman bases a lot of his theory in his book on killing on the work of a man called S.L.A. Marshall. And S.L.A. Marshall's thesis was that humans have an innate resistance to take the life of other human beings. And less than 15% of human beings will pull the trigger with intent to kill in wartime. So S.L.A. Marshall's thesis is that 15% of people have the correct aggression in order to apply, quote-unquote, justified violence. And that's what S.L.A. Marshall used as a justification for saying that there's different kinds of humans, that there's wolves, there's sheepdogs, and there's sheep. And that's what Dave Grossman bases a lot of his theology on. Now, S.L.A. Marshall's work was later on found out to be very fraudulent. S.L.A. Marshall was lazy. He made up a lot of his interviews. He was found to have cherry-picked data, and his work has been widely debunked. Humans aren't as simple as you are a sheep or you are a sheepdog or whatever his theory was. But that didn't stop Dave Grossman from going on to make a whole industry out of these debunked theories and go on to teach this industry to police officers. And when I say industry, I mean industry. This man is a huge and influential figure within law enforcement in America. He literally wrote the book on killing, meaning the name of his book is quote-unquote on killing. His books have been translated into a bunch of languages and have been given to security and police departments and military units around the world. They are required reading at the FBI Academy, and they're required reading at most police departments and academies. And like I said earlier, for more than 19 years, 300 days a year, he has been giving in-depth training seminars, primarily to police, both active and in the academy, but he doesn't stop at just police. He goes into schools to tell teachers that they should arm themselves to protect the children. He goes to churches to tell the parishioners there what they can do to prevent terroristic attacks on their church. He even goes on Fox News to talk to Tucker Carlson about how violent video games are training the youth of America to become a bunch of psychopathic killers, and we have to brace for the new wave of video game trained child killing machines. Not even joking.
Colonel Dave Grossman is the author of the book Assassination Generation, and he joins us tonight. Colonel, thanks for coming on. So,
thanks for having me on board, Tucker. Hey, you just said, you haven't seen the social science on it yet. Here it is.
Well, that's why I wanted. That's why I wanted to talk to you. So, this is the kind of idea that gets dismissed as crankish immediately by people who know nothing. The idea that violent video games and entertainment. Right. Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
so what do we know about it? What is the social science on it? What is the evidence?
The AMA, the APA, the American Academy of Pediatrics, Surgeon General after Surgeon General have made definitive statements. Where the matter came before the Supreme Court, California law to regulate children's access to violent video games, the video game industry found 82 journalism professors. Now think about it, 82 media studies professors who told the Supreme Court there is no scientific proof. It was academic malfeasance at the highest level. Our entire medical community screaming from the mountainside. One of the dissenting justices in the Supreme Court case said, I'm not a medical expert, but I know who is. And it's not 82 journalism professors, our entire medical community, thousands of sound scholarly studies telling us that...
I can't imagine anybody I'd less rather take advice from than journalism professor. I can't imagine a dumber group of people, actually.
Amen.
It's unbelievable.
The malfeasance of journalism professors making a joint statement to the Supreme Court. But Tucker, here's what's important. Please look at this. It was 2002, an identical crime happened in Germany. 19-year-old high school dropout in Erfurt, Germany, murders 17 people at a school. Identical crime. Germany, 2002. It's not about the guns. Germany can't stop it. We saw this weekend a massacre in a church in Russia. Russia's a totalitarian nation that's tried to confiscate every gun for a century, and they can't stop evil people from getting guns. The most horrific juvenile mass murder in history, a 17-year-old kid in 2009 in Binnen in Germany murdered 15 people. Germany can't stop it. Russia can't stop it. It's not about taking away rights.
Well, I
noticed
noticed
about giving people more right.
But why are the media so hesitant to go after the big businesses that are profiting from this garbage? That's a question I'd like to explore in greater detail.
It's their voter base and their...
Yeah, I know.
It's their donor base and their voter base. They know that they've lost the gun owners. They know that they've lost those votes. And to attack the gun owners, and especially to protect the video game industry, this is their donor base.
Well, that's exactly right. Lieutenant Colonel, thank you. I appreciate it, and I agree with you.
Hey, one last thing, Tucker, if I could.
Yeah.
We're teaching the kids that we need sheepdogs out there. We don't need more wolves. We don't need more sheep. We need sheepdogs. I originated the whole sheepdog concept. The Sheepdog Kids book, Assassination Generation. We're changing the world, Tucker. There's hope for America, and it begins with you. Thank you for what you do.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
I would like to take this opportunity to say there has been lots of studies done on both short-term and long-term effects of violent video games on youth, and whether it raises levels of aggression or creates homicidal violence on the other end. And there was a meta-study done just this year that went over 18 studies and over 21,000 young people from around the world, and they found a near-zero correlation. They found a positive effect. So there was a correlation, but it was so small and minuscule that the researchers say that they won't call it even a small effect. The correlation is so tiny that they conclude violent video games have a negligible to near zero effect on any rise in violence in America. So once again, Dave Grossman, profiting off fear-mongering, something he does a lot. He's the director and pioneer of the Killology Research Group, which defines Killology as, quote-unquote, the reactions of healthy people in killing circumstances, such as police and military in combat, and the factors that enable and restrain killing in these situations. Very simply, he thinks that he is training people how to be more effective killers in times where they need to kill, so that they don't hesitate to kill when they need to. If I'm not talking out of my ass, and I believe that his influence on police is as impactful as I suspect, he may be responsible for tens of thousands of lives taken by police in America and around the world. Because let's not forget, his training has been translated into many different languages and has been spread around security and police departments around the world. Now, what is he teaching? What is Killology? Grossman calls his discipline the scholarly art of the destructive act. Academics have criticized him for depicting his Killology as a responsible realm of study. He doesn't conduct experiments. He misuses findings of other studies. He draws conclusions off of unrelated data, and he relies on interviews and opinion as his main guiding factors. And when I say interviews and opinions, like I said earlier, it's mostly interviews done by a man that wasn't him interviewing soldiers from the World War. That same man was later on found to have fraudulent and lazy work. And that's what Grossman's philosophy and quote-unquote realm of study, which it's not, is based off of. He spent 2 decades in the military, He says training soldiers to kill more efficiently. The military has long taught its troops to kill through a process of conditioned response. Aim, shoot, aim, shoot, aim, shoot. It's basically meant to override the part of the brain that asks, should I be doing this? Should I be killing this person? Does this person deserve to die? He claims that the military, using the same tactics that he's teaching, raised the kill ratio from 15 to 25% during World War II, and to as much as 100% during the Vietnam War. Grossman takes this a step further. Rather than simply conditioning soldiers and police officers to shoot without hesitation, he teaches them to embrace their responsibility to kill. He says killing's not the goal, but we all understand that killing is a likely outcome. This is the man that's telling police officers what they should do to protect not only themselves, but their loved ones and citizens.
I am convinced from a lifetime of study, if you fully prepare yourself, in most cases, killing is just not that big a deal. For a mature warrior who's prepared themselves mind, body, and spirit for a lifetime, for a mature warrior who's killing somebody represents a clear and present danger to others, it's just not that big a deal. There's no wrong way to respond to killing. There's many ways people respond, and they're all the same. They're all okay. But if you could choose how you responded, I think you'd want to feel good about it, yeah? The satisfaction of hitting the target under the stress of combat, to do what you're trained to do, to stop a deadly force threat, to save lives, to save your own life. Something called survival euphoria. It feels real good. Some people feel bad, they don't feel bad, yeah? Some people feel bad, they feel good about it, yeah? LAPD brought me out to do in-service day for the detective. LAPD detective in-service day is 600 people. One crusty old detective came up, she said, Colonel, you're the first one in 20 years to tell me it's okay to not feel bad about killing that guy, yeah? You know, a lot of people have been on the left end of the political spectrum, been driven crazy by the movie American Sniper, yeah? Y'all see the movie American Sniper? We're deeply concerned that he didn't feel any remorse. He felt good about killing those guys. There's got to be something wrong with him. He should have felt remorse. He should have felt anguish. What do you think? Is something wrong with him? No, nothing wrong with him. I've seen it hundreds and hundreds of times. For those who fully prepare themselves, it's just not that big a deal.
So I've talked a lot about the guy. I've talked about his history, what he's done professionally, but what do these seminars look like? What is he doing in them? What is he teaching? Let's take a look at it. So the first thing he does, usually at the start of the seminars, his training courses, is he does a shitload of scaremongering.
Our current enemy is not remotely deterred. What are we going to do to them? We ain't already done. As far as they're concerned, they have absolutely nothing to lose. The minute they get a nuke, they're going to try to use it. Pakistan is not our friend. Pakistan is a barely controlled conglomerate of mutual interests, and Pakistan has over 100 nukes. They build them as fast as they can. Just a matter of time until Baghdad gets one of those nukes. Pop a nuke off half a mile offshore of Galveston or New Orleans. A radioactive tidal wave will take big chunks of Galveston, New Orleans, Pensacola, all the way down to Tampa off the map, and radioactive rain will fall across the southern U.S. I sincerely believe we've never been more likely to suck up a nuke, or we've never been less ready. Folks, they're going to use Ebola. It's just a matter of time. Now, Ebola is not infectious till you're in the symptomatic phase. It is if you have sex with them. We know that. A big, wet, sloppy kiss would probably do the job. Come across the border, have sex with as many prostitutes as you can, give them a big, sloppy, wet kiss for fun, and then try to figure out everybody that prostitute had contact with for the last 20 days. Go ahead, try to figure it out. And once you get infectious, once you start running a fever, spit on your hands, walk through the city, slime every doorknob, every handrail. It's coming. But if we predict future behavior based on past behavior, the thing they're most likely to do is come kill our kids. Folks, 1970, Israel, a school bus was wiped out. Folks, there's almost 500,000 school buses in America. When you hear about the first school bus full of dead kids, pray there's just one. 1974, Israel, the Ma'alot massacre. They set a standard that has been followed ever since. They took an Israeli school hostage. The Israelis counterattacked. The terrorists did not have time to execute every child, but they had time to shoot virtually every kid. The schools still open in southern Thailand have armed teachers and armed parents in the school 24/7, like Israel. That's why they can't do this to Israel. They would do it daily to Israel if they can, but Israel has found the only possible answer: armed people everywhere. Armed people everywhere. For 14 years, had it our way. For 14 years, we hunted them down across the planet and killed them with impunity. Now it's their turn, and they're going to come kill the kids. The lone jackal can pop up anytime, and don't call them lone wolves. But the lone jackal threat is the worst it's ever been, and like the Boston Marathon bombers. And folks, so they could easily hit a school. Somebody out there's got thousands of pounds of ammonium nitrate. Millions of parents will drop out of the workforce. They will modify the daily behavior of every single child, every family, every community in America by peeing in the water, by coming and killing our kids. You kept them the hell off our back with your blood and your lives for 13 years. I'll tell you what else you did. You established the first Arab democracy the world's ever seen in Iraq. Yeah, it's a mess. Every democracy is a mess. Look at ours, yeah? But folks, Winston Churchill said, democracies will drive you crazy. Churchill said, quote, democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others. Yeah? Now, this is 1993. The Soviet Union has collapsed. The Warsaw Pact has collapsed, and they've all become democracies. Democracy is sweeping across the planet, except the Arab world. I tell them what I just told you: our enemy is evil, our cause is just, our sacrifice for a noble and worthy purpose. Because if we fail, our legacy to our children will be darkness, death, and despair. So we're going to study that toxic realm called combat. As a firefighter studies fire, we study violence. Violence is our tool. Violence is our enemy. Violence is the realm we operate in. We must study it.
And that's what he does. That's just one little example. Like, this is one example from one of his, like, 3-hour seminars that he does for the public. Yeah. Like, he does more advanced training for the police, but he does little seminars for, like, teachers with guns and, like, the NRA and shit. And, like, just from this 3-hour lecture, he spends a third of it just bringing up examples. Here's this massacre in Germany. Here's this massacre in Hungary. Here's this massacre in Africa. And all these things could happen at home if you don't let down your guard. If you let down your guard. Yeah. And this is what he's teaching police, that there are evil actors around every corner, and if you aren't ready to act against them, they're going to butcher your children. Yeah.
They're going to fucking come and kill your wives and rape your children.
And, like, when you train police with that kind of attitude, when you train police for a world that's far more dangerous than it actually is, like, no wonder you see police attacking and killing people. They have their own, like, issues with selfishness and, like, disregard for human life, and they have their own issues with why they joined the police in the first place. But
Power.
Yeah, but, like, if you just take, like, a base American and you teach them all this shit, like, they're going to use their gun to, like, take care of any of these horrible problems that they see. And not only their gun, their fists and their knees and, like, all the tools they have to brutalize. So let's connect this to what we learned last episode. We learned that police are gaslit into a state of fear in the academy. They are told in the academy that the world is a dangerous and deadly place, more dangerous and deadly than it actually is. And they're told that policing is a dangerous job, that there are people wishing to commit harm out there. And those are true things. Policing is a dangerous job. There are people that want to commit harm. But overstating that case to the point where you gaslit and traumatize police officers into being paranoid and fearful and ready to kill unarmed people for the slimmest chance of them harming them does not create effective officers or an effective form of justice. It creates a group of police officers that are ready to kill at the drop of a hat. Officers routinely hear that every single traffic stop could be, might be, the last stop you ever make in your life. Awakening that fear within officers continually puts them in a state where they're willing to kill people at a lower threshold than they should. And Dave Grossman, uses that paranoia instilled in policemen, and he emphasizes it. Grossman begins cultivating the fear of the public and a readiness to kill. He views the world as an almost unrecognizably dangerous place. You guys heard the clips. It's a place in his mind where gang members seek to set records for killing cops, where a kid in every school is thinking about racking up a body count. And he instills and sees and tells police officers that there are likely attacks on daycares, school buses, schools, universities, places where children will be. This is a quote from one of his seminars. Kindergartners run about 0.5 miles an hour and get a burst of about 20 yards and then they're done. It won't just happen with guns, but with hammers, axes, hatchets, knives, and swords, hacking and stabbing little kids. You don't think they'll attack daycares? It's already happening in China. When you hear about a daycare massacre, tell them Grossman said it was coming. That's the type of scaremongering he's putting into police officers, security guards, teachers that come to his seminars, parishioners that come to his seminars. All sorts of people, even seminars just for the general public. He is instilling this fear in people. Yeah, and he basically does the whole them thing. The same thing that Trump does. You know, they're coming over the border. Most of them are rapists and killers, but I'm sure some of them are good people. David Grossman does the same thing to cops. He wants the cops to believe that the world is a dangerous place and that people are coming for your children.
Very black and white, like us versus them.
Oh, yeah. He calls his study killology.
Killology?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah,
I hate this. Yeah.
Well, you see the logo on his shirt, hey? Like Grossman, and it had like a target on it, hey?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't even heard it yet, and I have already cringed.
He pretty much just pulled it out of his ass and said, yep, yeah, I'm a science guy too, see? And like, yeah.
Killology, it has ology at the end.
Yeah.
It's like all that, like the FBI and their like hair analysis thing where it was just a thing they fucking made up, even though there's like no actual studies or science behind it whatsoever.
Oh yeah, precedent is a powerful tool to like, you know, keep people in jail. Yeah, call back to our forensic pseudoscience episode. Yeah,
yucky.
Yeah, you can tell if you listen to that episode, you can tell I don't endorse the legal system. There's this big push that said that, like, during the World War, they say, like, you can put a gun in the hands of any man, but to teach that man to pull the trigger and kill someone is harder. So he said that, like, he said, like, studying the military and seeing what the military does to up the kill numbers, like, they want to bump the people that actually do killing from 18 to, like, 30%, something like that. He wants to do the same thing with police.
What?
Yeah, he says, like, well, the military in the world wars, they found ways to train their soldiers to, like, kill, because most people don't want to kill other humans.
No shit.
So, like, we have to train these people to kill without thinking about it.
What the fuck?
Video games. I mean, like, I love video games.
No.
Yeah.
This is fucking absurd.
Didn't like the U.S. military like create their own video game, and it didn't matter which side you took. They always portrayed your side as like the soldiers, and the other side as like the terrorists.
Yeah. Which game is this?
I mean,
I can
what's it
ban
called?
it forever from my house.
I believe you're talking about America's Army.
Is that it?
That's literally the name of the game.
America's Army, and yeah, either side you pick, you were always portrayed as the military, and the other side was always the terrorist. Right? Always the terrorist. So the guys that pick the other side, they look like terrorists to you, but you look like terrorists to them in the gameplay.
Jeez,
it's like Black Mirror. You need to watch Black Mirror.
That framing's doing a lot of work. Christ.
I hate this.
Yeah.
I need to stop video games in my house.
So Grossman takes this philosophy a step further. Rather than simply conditioning soldiers and police to shoot without hesitation, he teaches them to embrace their responsibility to kill. Killing is not the goal.
Responsibility
to kill.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no
Did
problem.
you dance under that name too?
He goes on, killing's not the goal, but we all understand that killing is the likely outcome.
Blech.
What's more is he fetishizes killing. I'm like, I fucking wish I was exaggerating, but like, let me read a little bit of this. This is a sample of his speech. Are you prepared to kill somebody? If you cannot answer that question, you should not be carrying a gun.
Well, fair.
Yeah. He then goes on to say what life is like after you kill somebody. The sex they have after they kill another human being will be the best of their lives.
Blech.
Both partners are very invested in some very intense sex the night
Blech.
after a killing.
Blech. Hate it.
You'll love harder, laugh harder, live harder. You'll become a predator, and only true predators know what that gift is.
Blech.
He says the air will smell different, you'll see what's important in life, and you'll gain wisdom and never be the same.
I hate it.
It's like after every podcast episode, you don't have to kill someone. You just got to start a fucking podcast and you get that same sensation.
Right?
You love harder. The air tastes better.
Yeah,
you know?
I love you guys harder.
Yeah.
That's right.
Except for maybe a little bit less you.
Fuck off.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Another part of his mentality is the sheepdog metaphor. Can you play the sheepdog clip?
There are three types of people in this world. Sheep, wolves, and sheepdogs. Now, some people prefer to believe that evil doesn't exist in the world. And if ever darkened their doorstep, they wouldn't know how to protect themselves. Those are the sheep. And then you got predators. They use violence to prey on the weak. They're the wolves. And then there are those who've been blessed with the gift of aggression and the overpowering need to protect the flock. These men are the rare breed that live to confront the wolf. They are the sheepdog. And we're not raising any sheep in this family. And I will whoop your ass if you turn into a wolf.
Wayne.
But we protect our own. If someone tries to fight you or tries to bully your little brother, you have my permission to finish it.
The guy was picking on Jeff.
Is that true?
Yes, sir. Yes, he was.
Did you finish it? Well, then you know who you are. You know your purpose.
Yeah. Now, why did I play you a clip from American Sniper? It's because in David Grossman's seminars, he brags, well, you know that famous clip from American Sniper? They lifted it right from my book. That speech is a literal direct quote from his book. This is what David Grossman believes. 98% of people are sheep. They are too fearful and innocent to fight the wolves. They are gentle and naive, and they will only hurt people if greatly provoked. Sheep deny the danger they are in, so they must be protected in their ignorance. Sheep resent the sheepdog, and they will criticize the sheepdog, but this is natural and to be expected. And remember, in this metaphor, the sheepdogs are the police. So the police are taught by Dave, yeah, the sheep aren't going to be happy with you. Yeah, of course, no sheep likes a sheepdog barking around them, so the police, the citizens aren't going to like you. Just expect that. Yeah, the sheep don't like killers, so they will resent the sheepdog for being a killer. But the sheepdog must venture on and protect them anyhow. The wolves, the 1%, so... there's 1% of people are wolves, people who will take pleasure in causing pain, who will tear apart the sheep without mercy. They are predators and meat eaters who will take advantage of the sheep. They are sociopathic and without morals, and they are violent without empathy. The sheepdogs are the other 1%. These are the people that Dave says should become police, because these are the sheepdogs that protect the sheep. We fight violence. What do we fight it with? Superior violence. Righteous violence.
I hate that.
Yeah. Predators, too. They thirst for blood and violence, but they live to protect the flock. So he's saying, yes, police crave violence, but they channel that into protecting the flock.
How about fucking therapy?
Yeah, no kidding, right? They are violent, but only in specific situations.
No!
Violence with empathy does not... Yeah, and this is a fucked part.
Violence with empathy? What the fuck is that?
Yeah, delivering violence with empathy. And there's a part 2 to that, where, like, we wonder why so many police kill themselves, why so many police have mental health issues and stuff like that, like above the normal population. Dave teaches that a real sheepdog doesn't get PTSD, doesn't get trauma, because a sheepdog's built for that stuff. And he describes it as when people go to war, 98% of people don't do anything, 1% of people kill because they're psychopaths, and 1% of people kill, but they're okay afterwards, they're not traumatized.
That's not a thing!
Yeah. And he says, like, those...
Killing people is always traumatic.
Yeah.
That's nonsense. I hate this. I'm yelling.
And, like, you're trained, well, if you're a real cop, if you're a real sheepdog, you're not going to get trauma.
You're not getting traumatized by killing someone.
Yeah, like
you're not a psychopath.
You want to be a real real sheepdog, don't you?
But also, killing someone when you're not a psychopath is still traumatic.
Yeah,
I am yelling.
98% of those who were left after 60 days had become psychiatric casualties. They were literally driven crazy by combat. What about the other 2%? What do you think? They were crazy when they got there. The World War II researchers lumped them together as aggressive sociopaths or psychopaths. But wait, it's far more complex. All these numbers can vary greatly. Hear me, these numbers can vary greatly. World War II was a drafted cross-section of society. Among a group of volunteers, the numbers could change greatly, yes? But let us call it 1% and 1%. An old Vietnam vet, an old retired colonel told me one time, just one sentence, and we've run with it ever since. He said, most people in our society are sheep. They're just decent, gentle creatures who can only hurt you by accident or extreme provocation. And then there's a wolf. And the wolf will feed on the sheep without mercy. Are there wolves in the land? Are there people who will harm your children and take pleasure from doing it? Yes. Tell it to best land. Yes. There are wolves in the land. The moment you try to pretend, no, there's no bad men out here, you, my friend, are in denial. And denial is the enemy. Denial turns us into sheep. So the guy said, there are wolves, there are sheep, and then he said, there are sheepdogs. He said, I am a predator too. I am a meat eater too. But I live to protect the flock and confront the wolf. Critical concept here, folks, critical concept. Only a predator can hunt a predator. You know what the wolf calls it when a sheep tries to stand up to him? Yeah? Lunch. What's the wolf call it when a whole bunch of sheep try to stand up to him? Yeah? A buffet. Only a predator can hunt a predator. The predator under authority. The predator dedicated to protecting the flock. The sheepdog. And folks, what's the predator do? They kill. Only a killer can hunt a killer. And you got to ask yourself right now, no matter what your task is, what your job is, if you're wearing the uniform of our nation, you got to ask yourself, are you spiritually, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, physically prepared to snuff out a human life under the rules of engagement in the defense of our nation? If you can't answer that question, and I'll tell you the deep secret of the field of psychology. Every human being is insecure. The ones who could admit they're insecure are a little more secure than the others, within the normal bounds of human uncertainty. Have you resolved in your heart that you are fully prepared to snuff out a human life? If you can't make that decision, you're in the wrong job. And folks, once you've made that decision, you're a predator. Under normal circumstances, the sheep don't like having predators around. The sheep are wary of the sheepdog until when? When do they suddenly change their mind? When the wolf shows up. The whole flock tries to hide behind one lonely sheepdog, yes? So folks, the uber sheep out there are saying, the bad man's gone, leave us alone, go away. They're wrong. Bad news, the wolf is at the door. Very, very bad times are coming. Good news, the worse it gets, the more they appreciate their sheepdogs. And so folks, here's why this model is important. If you have no propensity for violence, then you're a nonviolent citizen. And when the wolf shows up, you're going to die if there's a sheepdog there to protect you. If you have a propensity for violence and an absence of empathy, violence without empathy is a pretty good thumbnail definition of what? A psychopath, a sociopath, a wolf. But what if you had a propensity for violence and a love for the lambs? What if you spent a lifetime nurturing the capacity for violence, the desire to use it in a righteous battle? Now what do you have? A sheepdog, an airman, a warrior.
ACAB, yes, ACAB. But let's take a look at what they've done to these people. They've taken people in, they've gaslit the fuck out of them, they've made them scared of the citizens, and they've given them weapons like out the ass to use on the citizens. Yes. And they've given them qualified immunity so that when they use these weapons on the citizens, they rarely, if ever, get held accountable.
Yes! But then if they don't get held accountable, they still are held accountable, like, in their own selves. And that fucking breaks them.
Is everybody sober now? I'm sober.
I'm drunk, but also
I need some more poison.
I'm very mad.
Yeah, and just to touch on what you said there, Sage, like, police officers kill themselves at higher rates than many other jobs. That's one of the leading causes of police officer death, is suicide. And looking at what they're taught, it's no wonder. Not only do they have the high pressures of the job, but they're taught, hey, if you're a real sheepdog, you shouldn't get trauma from killing people. How is that not pressure to not go seek help? To not talk about the trauma you're going to get from killing and maiming and brutalizing people? It's just no wonder that effect comes out the other end. Something else that David Grossman often claims is that the number of dead cops is exploding like nothing we've ever seen. That is not true. The average number of police officers intentionally killed in the past decade is 40% lower. 40% overall. Lower than it was in the 1980s. Drastically lower. This is despite the number of guns in America tripling in that same time. This is despite the population increasing. This is despite the number of police actively working being higher than it ever has before. Despite all those factors, police officer deaths on the job have drastically dropped. And David Grossman says that the military is the only organization that tracks down the cause of every death. And the statistics that other people use are false. That's the claims he makes to fight against it. He claims that if emergency medicine and body armor hadn't improved since the 1970s, the number of dead cops would be 8 times what it is today. So that's where the disparity is. He thinks that attacks on cops are way up, but because body armor has improved and emergency medicine has improved, that accounts for the difference. And if we didn't have those things, instead of attacks on cops and deaths of cops dropping, it would be 8 times what it is right now. The deaths of cops. People who have looked at those variables, like people who actually work with statistics and numbers, say this does not account for the drop in officer deaths, as officer deaths have fallen at the same rate as all violent crime all across the Western world. It's a phenomenon that has happened over the last 40 or so years. The fall of violent crime across the Western world has occurred. And yeah, the police's job is dangerous. They have the 14th most dangerous job. But David Grossman tries to convince police officers that it is the most dangerous job. They die at a rate of 14.6 per 100K. half of those being violent confrontations with another person. Most police die in traffic accidents or through other work-related accidents, a lot through suicide as well. But less than half of that comes from violent confrontations with another person, which is way down from where it was in the 80s. Now, I'm not saying that police officer isn't a dangerous job, it is, but people working in construction, mechanics, repair people, groundskeepers, farmers, ranchers, drivers, people that work in sales, welders, steel workers, carpenters, masons, garbage people, people that work in recycling plants, roofers, heavy equipment operator, drivers, pilots, any job on a boat, even my job. I'm a food courier. That's what I do for extra money on the side. I deliver food from restaurants to people. The death rate for my job is 24.7 per 100K, when for police it's 14.6 per 100K. For roofers, it's 48.6 per 100K. For fishermen, it's 86 per 100K. And for loggers, it's 135 per 100K. But Grossman trains cops and insists that danger is more prevalent and closer than ever. He teaches cops the exact opposite of what the statistics show. He tells them that America today is more dangerous than it ever has been, and we're on the edge of calamity and terrorism at any second, and you need to be prepared and don't believe the statistics from quote-unquote liberal media. He never has any actual statistics to show for this. Just hand-wavy explanations. So once again, fear-mongering.
Last thing I'll go over with David is the warrior mindset, and that's a simple one. He believes that the police is the fifth line of the military. Or sorry, fifth is the fifth. Space is now the fifth. I keep on forgetting about the fucking Space Force.
Space Wars. That was the kind of charming show.
Yeah. A funny part, because Space Force premiered first and had the copyright registered first, they may have the rights to the name of the American government.
Trademark wise, and Trump should be super mad about it.
Yeah.
I kind of love it.
Trump can die mad. It's fine.
It's a fantastic show.
It is.
I love it. Like,
it is a good show. Yeah,
it highlights the whole like military-industrial complex.
I do.
And
I like
how everything kind of fits together, yet is a very satirical kind of examination of the situation.
I get a big hard-on for space stuff, though, so I think that might factor in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the warrior mindset.
You know, there's been silly people that don't like the use of that word warrior with law enforcement. So look up the definition of the word warrior. One who prepares for or participates in what? War. Is our nation at war? Is our cops the frontline troops in this war? Yeah. And they don't want to use the word warrior? They're in denial. They're just in stinking denial. There's people that are troubled by using the word warrior for our cops. I'm troubled that they're trying to pretend we're not at war. They're trying to pretend that we don't need our warriors. Now, here's ultimately why it's important. Here's the heart of the matter. Ultimately, these people are shattered by combat. These people are crazy when they got there. But these people are able to survive and thrive in the heart of darkness. They're not psychopaths. They're not sociopaths. And they're not destroyed by combat. These people are bulletproof. I call it the bulletproof mind. They're bulletproof.
So the concept of the bulletproof mind is David Grossman believes that if we seek out and find these 1% of people, and it varies from presentation to presentation, because when he's talking about World War II combatants, it's 1%. But I've seen him go up as high as like 5 or 10% of the population. So like 80% of the population is sheep, 10% are sheepdogs, 10% are wolves. I've seen him go that high in some presentations. But the main thing that he's trying to say is we have to find these sheepdogs. We have to find these sheepdogs in society, because these are the sheepdogs that can be trained to have a bulletproof mind. Which means that when they kill, and when they kill in a justified way, when they kill someone and take evil out of this world, from David Grossman's perspective on the world, because he sees evil lurking around every corner, they will not get traumatized. They will not get shaken. They will not be affected by taking the life of another human being. That's what he thinks the bulletproof mind is. And he's teaching cops how to get into that mindset, how to become okay with justifying your killing.
So he describes the cops as the sixth arm of the military because they're fighting the war at home on our own streets.
Because your citizens are military combatants, right?
Well, yeah. Well, 1% of them are psychopaths, and 98% of them are dumb sheep who don't recognize the wolves and will just follow along and don't recognize they're in danger. So even though they yell at you and criticize you, you have to protect them from the wolves anyhow. Yep. And sometimes you need to beat the sheep into submission and bark at them in order to get them to behave.
Because fuck those guys.
Yeah. The second figure I'll talk about, and this is the last part I'll talk about because it's going a bit late, is William J. Lewinsky. Both Dave and William, they spend all year, 300 days a year on the road, teaching police departments, going from police department like weekend after weekend after weekend, and they're held up as these like figures to be like respected and like examples to be followed. And like even in the police departments they don't go to, like the majority of police departments have their books as required reading. Oh my god. So they're getting like this anyway. So William J. Lewinsky, so he's a psychologist.
Bill Lewinsky's been hitting rewind for 30 years, teaching and training police in Minnesota and across the country. A former professor at Mankato State, he runs the Force Science Institute, which is dedicated to using empirical research in behavioral psychology to study and understand police tactics and training. The problem, Lewinsky says, goes all the way back to how we teach cops.
They've failed before they graduated, and they've failed after they graduated.
Lewinsky recently studied 3 large police academies and found their focus on classroom lectures and specific skills in isolation leaves cops unprepared for the real world.
How quickly do these officers forget their training?
Well, what we found was complex skills, and complex skills would be weapon takeaway skills, for instance, or some of the takedown skills. Those were gone within 2 weeks of instruction to the point where they were not functional, and we are severely deficient, not just in Minnesota, but across the nation in the type of decision-making we teach in the police world.
I think there are areas where Dr. Lewinsky is asking really good questions and where he has good insights, and this is one where I agree with him.
Seth Stoughton is a former police officer and trainer who just wrote a book on the use of force.
Well, why is there a lack of empirical research in policing?
A lot of this is cultural. Policing in the United States has never been professional in the sense of developing evidence-based standards or having industry-wide best practices.
Stoughton says most police tactics the public's familiar with were developed by the NYPD in the 1970s. And like the controversial warrior training, he says too much is based on anecdote, not science.
One time this one officer did this one thing and this thing happened and the officer got killed. That's why you should do it this other way. Okay, maybe in some contexts that might make sense. In other contexts, it definitely doesn't.
But Stoughton says Lewinsky and his Force Science Institute is also part of the problem, that he's conducting pseudoscience.
Some of it's useful and a lot of it's crap. I don't think there's a much better way to say that.
He's not the only critic. A few years ago, the New York Times gave Lewinsky the kind of profile you don't want to have under the headline, "Training Officers to Shoot First, and He Will Answer Questions Later." The story's opening line, "The shooting looked bad, but that is when the professor is at his best." Lewinsky has consulted and testified in nearly 200 cases, most of the time defending police officers.
I have been called to testify on what a research has to say. I'm presenting facts on it, and it so happens that there are some people who are really upset by that.
The Tysell Nelson case was one that really pushed me to come to an understanding of what the parameters of this were all about.
I first interviewed Lewinsky about the killing of Tysell Nelson, a 17-year-old shot in the back by Minneapolis police officer Dan May 30 years ago. Lewinsky said his review of 900 police shootings showed bullets to the suspect's back are actually common, because suspects usually draw their weapons first and often turn at the last moment. And if an officer hesitates for even a fraction of a second,
if they're close enough, they're dead or wounded.
And that, critics say, is the dangerous premise behind much of his analysis. The cop who hesitates gets killed.
Unfortunately, a lot of the thrust of their study seems to be developing information that can be used to explain officers' bad decisions or poor actions.
Lewinsky's written extensively on excited delirium, a controversial theory of in-custody deaths. It's what Officer Thomas Lane said he was worried about with George Floyd, why Derek Chauvin said he had Floyd prone on the ground, and it may yet prove to be a defense strategy at their murder trial. Lewinsky's also testified about inattentional blindness, when an officer's recollection of a shooting conflicts with video evidence. Lewinsky blames it on the officer's focus and memory, not lying.
You can't distinguish between an officer who didn't see something, didn't remember something, and is simply lying about it. There's no way to distinguish that.
And Lewinsky's testified about slip and capture, when an officer thinks they're reaching for their taser, but grabs their gun and shoots a suspect.
The problem with this is it is impossible to test. It's a theory, but you can't actually look at any one incident and say, oh, that was slip and capture, and therefore it's okay, as opposed to that was a hideously unreasonable mistake, and therefore it's not okay.
Stoughton says Lewinsky's sample sizes are often too small to justify his conclusions, but concedes he's very persuasive on the stand. And when you say you have science on your side, juries believe you.
But if you're trying to apply scientific theory or research, it actually has to be based in the evidence and not stretched beyond what the data can support.
I have always tried to do the research that helps us understand what the dynamics are, because that's the problem we need to solve.
His quote-unquote science is he gave college students fake guns, and he put a camera on them, and he's seen how fast they could draw the gun, And he had them standing and seeing how fast they could draw the gun, how fast they could draw the gun, fire, and run away, how fast they could draw the gun and fire from a seating position. And he came up with the conclusion, okay, the fastest possible times these college students can do is the bare minimum for cops. And so he used that logic to go on to say, well, you see, it takes X amount of time for a person to draw a gun, according to my science, and fire it. So if a cop pauses and sees sees if that weapon is a gun or not, that's too late. The time it takes for the brain to recognize that object is a gun, you'll end up dead. Also, you remember the example I said where he got somebody to mock shoot a gun and then run away? Yeah. He did that study to exonerate cops who shoot people running away in the back. Yeah. Because he was theorizing that, okay, somebody theoretically could draw, fire, turn around and run, and by the time it takes the cop to raise his gun and fire, that person who was a legitimate threat looks like they're running away, even though they've fired their gun. Yeah, what makes it worse is not only does he train cops this shit, listen, you have to undergo this training, and you have 3/4 of a second to shoot the person if they get threatening. If you don't, you're going to die. And your biggest job at the end of the day is getting home to your family at the end of the day, so zero risk on your part. You don't have time to see if that's a gun. If it might be a gun, take your shot.
This is why cops should be shifted into different roles, and they should have mental health professionals taking care of this shit. Because I have gotten death threatened. Yeah. I didn't have a gun to threaten this guy with, even after he said that he would fucking kill me. Yeah. And he was a convicted murderer. He came back in 3 months, gave me a hug, and apologized. Like, let's fucking calm the fuck down.
Yeah, but yeah, you were in that position, but yet cops see the average citizen as so much more threatening and deadly than you ever saw those literal convicted murderers.
Convicted murderers.
Yeah.
Who were with a 20-year-old girl all alone at night.
Yeah.
Who threatened them with death for not giving them more baloney.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, a bunch of psychologists have called out Dr. Lewinsky for like his studies. They say like, okay, like setting like some kind of like bullshit like college level speed record for drawing a gun isn't how we should train cops to deal with citizens.
No!
Like we shouldn't treat like every citizen like they're the expert at the OK Corral and you got to take them out even though that gun might just be a cell phone kind of thing.
That's insane.
I'll be your Huckleberry.
Oh, goody.
Matt Apuzzo's article in the New York Times accuses you of being the kind of expert the tobacco industry created, does it not, sir?
Matt Apuzzo is incorrect, but I think he says our science is not. He quotes people as saying, he actually quotes a plaintiff's attorney, who I don't know that they're a good source of science, but he quotes a plaintiff's attorney as saying that.
The article talks about how, contrary to the law, you teach police to shoot first and you will come in and answer all questions later. Isn't that what the article says, sir?
That's what a plaintiff's attorney named John Burton has said, yes.
And the New York Times article does quote researchers criticizing your methodology and talks about how your research is based on YouTube-like videos of a limited number of suspects rather than scientific basis.
It's Lisa Fournier. We know basis or judgment on newslines and magazine articles.
Since you've had training in psychology, you understand the psychological phenomena of something called confirmation bias, do you not, sir?
I certainly do.
In psychology and cognitive science, confirmation bias is a tendency to search for or interpret information in a way that confirms one's preconceptions and often leads to scientific or statistical errors. Isn't that right, sir?
Confirmation bias is a human phenomenon, and you're speaking about it when it occurs in a research process.
Yes, sir, I am.
Yes.
And yesterday you said to this court that you have no bias in favor of police officers. Is that right?
That is correct.
You admit that since 2003, you have only testified on the side of police officers in criminal cases. Do you have bias in favor of police officers?
We certainly support the police profession, and our research is designed to help them perform more effectively, right, in both training and investigations.
Okay, so you do have a bias in favor of police officers?
We certainly, yes, perform our work primarily for the benefit of police as a whole and the investigative bodies concerned with them.
Okay, and now let's go back to my question. Since 2003, you have only testified in favor of police officers, whether it's a criminal case, in a secret grand jury proceeding, or in civil cases. Is that right?
We've been asked to present our research to police or for police officers, yes.
You have never testified on behalf of a citizen who was shot, killed, or injured by the police since 2003, have you?
We've never been asked.
Yes, sir.
So the answer is no.
Is it true that you don't believe that naive civilians should be allowed to judge the actions of officers?
I believe that police officer training is highly professional, very complex, and naive civilians need information if they're going to judge a professional activity. It doesn't matter what activity that is, whether it's medicine, law, engineering. It's very helpful for people to have some foundational information before they make a judgment. So I believe that naive citizens need training.
Even though experts are supposed to approach each case from a neutral perspective, you think of yourself as part of the defense team defending the officer, do you not, sir?
We're certainly part of bringing information forward if we're asked as part of a defense, yes.
Let's talk about inattentional blindness. Are you going to try to talk about that in this court today?
No, focused attention, certainly, but not inattentional blindness.
You're aware that Arian Mack, one of the two psychologists who coined the term inattentional blindness, says it is not appropriate to use that term in court. Is that right?
She said that, but she also said because officers lie.
Right. And,
So-
and in the lab, you understand there is no motivation to lie, is there?
Based on Arry and Mack's observations, it's inapplicable in any situation involving humans where whatever they say is questionable. So therefore, you can't take it out of the lab if we restrict it only to Arry and Mack's definition. You also need to look at what Arry and Mack was referring to when she said that. I don't know what was posited to her. I do know in further conversations, we understand she did not understand what we are speaking about here in court today.
Everyone else is wrong and you are correct, sir. Is that right?
No. I'm only saying when you consider what she says, you need to listen to the question that was posed and to how she was answering it and what concept she had in mind when she was answering it.
Yes, sir. You aren't challenging her qualifications as a psychologist.
No. I'm only saying we should confirm the question that was asked of her when we look at her answer.
You acknowledge that you have no clear way to distinguish inattentional blindness from lying, do you, sir?
That is correct.
You are not a mind reader, are you, sir?
Correct.
And you don't know what an officer's thinking other than what they tell you?
That is correct. If an officer is speaking, we have other ways of looking at that at this point in time, some objective measurements. We have ways of interviewing officers at this point in time that facilitates an understanding of the clarity and whether or not deception's involved. But it's absolutely, you're correct in that.
You can't say what the officer really saw or really knew at the time they pulled the trigger, can you, sir?
That's correct.
Okay. And this whole idea of what the officer knows is complicated by the fact that you advise police investigators not to interview police officers for a few days until they have time to calm down and think about what happened. Isn't that right, sir?
We're following the recommendations of the International Association of Chiefs of Police.
Yes, sir. That's what you advise investigators to do, is to let the police officers calm down for a couple days. Is that right?
That's what the professionals and the experts in law also state. So we're endorsing what they state.
Okay. And you are proposing that they treat police officers involved in a homicide differently than ordinary citizens involved in a homicide. Is that right?
Actually, they're treating them the same. Citizens can invoke Miranda and never have to say anything at any time. So they can, if they want to compose themselves, they certainly can take a few days before they say anything, if they say anything at all.
Yes, sir. Do you advise police officers that they should tell citizens, whether they invoke Miranda or not, that really you should go home for a couple days and I'll interview you in a couple days?
That certainly is a citizen's choice. By the way, it's what we tell victims of assault all the time.
Yes, sir. Do you advise and train police officers that they should not interview witnesses or suspects at a homicide scene until a couple days? Is that what you advise investigators?
I have never advised investigators on when to interview civilian witnesses, especially if they invoke Miranda.
Okay. And in fact, online, where any police officer can access it, you have put all these articles, including articles like 10 tips for surviving controversial high-profile cases.
Yes, we're reporting on information provided by others we think might be helpful for the profession.
Yes, sir. And in the 2 days that the police officer is calming down and waiting for an interview, nothing prevents them from getting online on your website to find your advice and all the articles about things like inattentional blindness, does it, sir?
Oh, I have no idea what they might do, but that certainly could be true.
And they could read that if they claim they didn't see that the person's back was to them, that you may come in and defend them on that basis. Is that right?
There's all sorts of things you could allege that may occur. I don't know.
And you recommend that the police officers who are involved in a homicide review the videotape, do a scene walkthrough, and consult with their peers who were involved before they ever give a statement. Isn't that what you tell police officers?
That is what we tell police officers if you're looking for the most accurate report possible on the true objective information about what occurred. When we look at the research that supports accurate reporting, conferring supports accurate reporting if you can eliminate bias. Memory aids such as walking through a scene, looking at video, are things that are currently used in the police practice to enhance memory. And they objectively enhance memory. They have problems, but they certainly objectively enhance memory. So if you want the best report possible, you certainly could do that.
Okay, and if this were a regular citizen or a suspect in a homicide doing that exact thing, going back to the scene and doing a scene walkthrough and looking at all the evidence and talking to all their buddies, you would say that they were getting their false story straight, wouldn't you, sir?
Well, certainly every citizen can do that.
Yeah.
Just to sum this up, I'll play a video, the Flandio Castillo video.
Computer bitch demon. Sorry. I don't know if that's what you want to be called.
I mean, generally we don't leave the bitch part in, but hey, whatever.
We could call you Puddin'.
It's the end of the evening, and I am inebriated.
Thanks, Puddin'.
So after all we talked tonight, this video makes a little more sense as to why this cop decided to do what he does.
I don't want to see this. I've seen this before.
It gets brutal, so yeah, just be warned.
Well, sir. Good. How are you? Good. Reason I pulled you over, your brake lights are out. So you only have one active brake light, and that's going to be your passenger side one. Your third brake light, which is up here on top, and then this one back here, is going to be out. You have your license and insurance?
I do have a firearm on me.
Don't reach for it then. Don't pull it out. Don't pull it out.
You just killed my boy. He wasn't reaching.
Don't pull it out.
He wasn't.
Don't move.
Oh, man.
Don't move.
Oh, my
Don't move.
Oh, my God. I'm shaking.
Don't move.
Don't move, baby.
Code 3. Get the baby girl out of here.
Stay with me. We got pulled over for a busted tail light in the back. And the police, he's covered. He killed my friend. He's licensed. He's licensed to carry. He was trying to get out his ID and his wallet out his pocket, and he let the officer know that he had a firearm and he was reaching for his wallet, and the officer just shot him in his arm. We're waiting for a back. I will, sir. No worries. I will. He just shot his arm off. We got pulled over on Larpener.
I told him not to reach for it. I told him to get his hand out.
You told him to get his ID, sir, and his driver's license. Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead. Please don't tell me my boyfriend just went like that.
Keep your hands where they are, please.
Yes, I will, sir. I'll keep my hands where they are. Please don't tell me this, Lord. Please, Jesus, don't tell me that he's gone. Please don't tell me that he's gone. Please, officer, don't tell me that you just did this to him. You shot 4 bullets into him, sir. He was just getting his license and registration, sir.
Like, the dude's fucking panicked, eh?
And a
child came out of the back of the car.
Yes, exactly.
Like, he kind of blurts out in kind of a moment that he did it because he was nervous. Like, Flandio made him feel nervous. So that's why he shot. And so many of these things circle back. He shot because he was scared, because he was taught that if you give them even a quarter of a second, you're dead. You have to get them before they get you.
Cool. Also, for some context, my park light has been out for at least 6 months.
Yeah.
My husband and I are as white can be.
Yeah. And again, that's something that's taught in the academies. Use minor traffic infractions to, upsell to a higher charge. Yep.
I would never expect to be shot for a park light being out.
Yeah, and he did everything
threatening. Like, my husband he's like a bearded guy.
Yeah,
but he's super white. No cop would ever find him threatening.
Yeah.
No cop would ever find me threatening.
That's all it took. Flandio did everything he could. He told them, I have a legally registered firearm. I am reaching for my wallet. And didn't matter.
No, reach for it. And he's like, the fuck do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And they shot him.
It's
Yucky. Awful.
Well, and just the absolute panic in that guy's voice. The woman in the vehicle was way more calm and collected after they unloaded 7 rounds into her partner or whatever than the fucking cop was.
Yeah.
Even walking up to that car.
Yep.
You know,
because
like,
she's
it's-
been taught to be calm.
Yeah.
If she were to start panicking, he may have shot her.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, like, she's way the fuck more calm than this officer who apparently is supposed to have been trained at being, like, you know, level-headed in tense situations, apparently or allegedly being trained that, you know, and he's freaking the fuck out, and she's like, you just shot him, you know, like.
Well, and you read, like, even on, like, fucking Facebook, you read so many accounts of black mothers being like, this is what I taught my son.
Yeah.
This is what you have to do, because the cops will automatically put you up like 10 notches on their threat list.
Yeah. And just to pound the fact in that this is an everywhere problem, like, I know an indigenous mother that has taught her son just that.
100%. Yeah. Any like BIPOC.
Yeah. So just to close this out now, I've collected all this into kind of like a little paragraph that sums a lot of this up, and this may seem dramatic or exaggerated, but for some cops, this is the impression they're getting from their training. And they're sent out in the streets with weapons to deal with citizens.
We're not trying to make excuses for cops.
Yeah.
This is definitely an explanation for why maybe cops behave the way they do.
Oh, yeah. So, a collection of what we've been told. So, primarily white, male, middle-class to upper-class people make up most of policing. They're picked for being obedient, aggressive, and not standing up or intervening with their fellow officers. They were then put through training, where they received inadequate training in every part of their job, where they learned to lie and manipulate and deceive the public into giving up their rights and to increase the levels of arrests and charges. They learned to use lethal force that is often uncalled for because it gains control of a situation quicker, often on unarmed people, all because they're taught that hesitating too long or not gaining control of a situation quickly would result in death. They learn normal, vague human behavior, signs of deception, suspicious behavior, and intents to attack. They are told they are sheepdogs, guardians of the ignorant, hateful sheep that don't appreciate them, and they fight against a sociopathic enemy, the wolf, who they must slay to protect the sheep. They are told real sheepdogs don't get PTSD. They are told that if they don't shoot first, they will die. They are told they are in a war, a literal war taking place in the streets of America, against an enemy that will butcher school children if they let their guard down. They are told they are Batman. They are told true warriors kill, and that killing is a welcome outcome, and that killing is an enlightened experience that will enrich the perception of life. This police training isn't working out for anybody.
No, that's like such a super like either or version of humans in general.
Yeah. And again, this is just one piece of a very corrupt puzzle, but it's a piece that gets many people killed and injured every year, and their rights violated. Does anybody have anything else to add?
No,
I hate it.
That was pretty thorough.
Yeah.
I hate this. This makes me sad.
For Occultae Veritatis, Abanud Gallifrey,
Sage Murray,
Richard Bigley,
Leon Filger,
and in studio with us,
Valhalla, who's very mad.
have a good night, ACAB. And stay tuned after the music for the after show, where I have an interview with someone who wants to be referred to simply as Lee about their experiences going through vocational police training. Playing us out this episode, we have from 1937, Billie Holiday singing her song, Strange Fruit. And I say it's a very apt song because it's providing commentary on the lynchings of black people in 1937 America. That's the strange fruit hanging from trees that she refers to in the song. It's a powerful piece of music.
Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh. Then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the tree to drop. Here's a strange and bitter
Today we're talking with not only somebody who has been through vocational training for American law enforcement, but is also one of our lovely patrons of Valhalla. So not only is he a trusted source, he's a member of the cult. So good to have you on, Lee.
Thanks.
First off, when you decided to go into vocational training, what perspectives did you have surrounding who police officers were and what their jobs were, and how that led you into wanting to go into this training to become one?
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I went into training, I wanted to find a career, and mainly my perception of police was mostly positive. I grew up in a very conservative household. So I had a positive outlook on law enforcement and authority. It was mainly because I was pretty good at solving puzzles, so the investigative side of police work sounded like an interesting thing for me. So that's kind of where I wanted to end up, was kind of like in a detective role or some, I wanted to solve puzzles in a career, and that's kind of what they were selling that course as.
Did the morality of it or the justice of it appeal to you? Like, it sounds like your main motivation was to find a way to take your love of solving puzzles into a career. But did the aspects of like, oh, I'm serving the community or I'm serving justice, did those appeal to you at all?
They did. So I'll be honest. There was a lot of hectic times in my upbringing. I had a sister who had done a lot of drugs, so there was definitely like a lot of interest in serving the community, kind of taking all of those bad experiences that I had in my childhood and making sure other people didn't really have to go through them. So there was a lot of instances where I can just remember I definitely wouldn't want another person to have to go through that. So being a police officer appealed to me in that aspect as well.
When you looked into going into vocational training, did you talk to any recruitment or any or I'm not sure what the structure was like. I guess how was the training pitched to you?
So basically, it was during my high school, my second high school year. So what is that, sophomore? So during my sophomore year, I was given the option to do a half day of vocational training, and that's essentially what I was doing. So the freshman year, they had us fill out a paper, do a bunch of research on different careers that were available to us with different vocations, whether it be welding or brick masonry. They had electrical engineering, cosmetology, and so yeah, there was a bunch of different options, but it came down to I sat down with my mom, and she was like, you really prefer solving puzzles. This seems like it would keep your attention. The entertainment that we get on TV is the reality that I'd be living every day, and it varies from that.
Oh yeah, and like a lot of the media is very charming. A lot of cops in the media are very idealized. Like to this day, I'm still a fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but especially after this recent rash of police beatings and me doing more research into just what the New York Police Department is capable of. It colors kind of how a New York Police Department is idealized in the media,
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but one of the things that coming out of, and I'm sure we'll get into it, coming out of the training was I trusted police officers much less than I did when I went in.
Yeah, I'm finding that the more research I do, the more whatever biases I have left are being eroded even more. Do you remember, I'm not sure if it was a moment or if it was a slow realization, but was there a moment where you were instructed about something, or you read something, or you learned something in your training, and you were like, oh, that doesn't sound quite right, or oh, that's not what I was expecting?
There was a slow buildup of things that were kind of I don't know, this doesn't make sense. One thing was a lot of statistics were thrown around regarding people of color and arrests, weapons, specifically with regard to weapons. I remember my teacher standing in front of the class saying something not too dissimilar to, it is more likely for a black man to have a gun and a Latino person to have a knife based on these statistics. And I'm like, well, that didn't make any sense to me. And it's all based off of FBI crime reporting data, which is inherently flawed. There was that. So one thing that we did was we would patrol the parking lot in our at our school and write tickets for cars that didn't have parking passes. And one of the things that kind of hit differently for me was I wrote a ticket for a vehicle that I didn't recognize and didn't have a parking pass, and it's like a $5 fine or whatever, a slap on the wrist from the administration. They really don't care. It's just a thing to give us training. But I got a call up to the teacher's desk, and he looked at me and he goes, "Did you write this ticket?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." And he goes, "Well, do you realize you put it on my car?" And I said, "No, I didn't realize I put it on your car." And he goes, "How are we going to deal with this?" I was like, I guess you're going to pay the fine. I don't know. What do you want me? He's like, well, don't do it. You ever see that car out in the parking lot again, don't do it.
Just kind of overtly asking for special treatment, The FBI crime statistics, there's so much of how, I'm sure you realize this because, you saw something wrong as well, but how they're collected is so flawed because, those communities have been over-policed for, the beginning. I was gonna say since a year, but there hasn't been a year where they weren't over policed. And of course you're gonna find more weapons that begats and supports that data if you over patrol these communities like chronically for years and years on end.
So, I mean, absolutely, especially once you have, you've set these statistics to, I expect a Latino to carry a knife. You're going to start looking for knives. You're going to start looking for guns on black people because you assume that they have, guns. And that's where it starts to, I'm going to start looking for cocaine, or I'm going to start planting. I'm a little divergent on that planting claim. But anyway, the other side of it is it's only on reported crimes. There are so many crimes that are unreported that we can't get a fair number. Like one in particular, rape, is underreported significantly just because it's such a trauma for that person to go through, all of the testing, all of the if the police even give a damn about them, because there's been so many times where they'll come in and be like, oh, are you sure you didn't, they'll victim blame. Are you sure it happened this way? Are you sure you guys weren't in a relationship? Lines of questioning like that. And that turns so many people away from reporting, such a heinous crime that there's no way to have that number be the actual number that it is. It's just underreported.
Oh yeah. Like it's crude to say, but really we're working with like an incomplete data set, and it sounds like with that incomplete data set, we're educating police officers to prepare for things that might not be statistically supported at all. If you were to ask a police officer, like in his regular day-to-day life, like, hey, did you racially profile that guy? Or, hey, were you racially profiling? Of course they would say no, they would deny it, because, like, they know that's, like, a bad thing to do, but, like, as per the training, it sounds like they were preparing police officers to do exactly that.
I mean, yeah, you're not going to notice something if it's acceptable to you by your policy, like, if you go based off of the information that you're given, you're not going to recognize that it's problematic.
Yeah. Based on what you were trained, what are some bad results you think it could produce?
I'll be honest. One of the things that we did see in training a lot was the negative outcomes of policing. So all of the violence, and that's beat into that every day you're going to have a violent interaction, which I couldn't tell you if that's the truth or not being a police officer, but I would imagine that, there are a good number of days where you don't have that violent interaction unless you're the cause of that violent interaction. It's one of those things that it's like, if you keep, I said it before, if you keep preparing yourself for the worst, you're going to get the worst. If you're expecting everyone to be against you, suddenly you're becoming paranoid and everyone is against you. And it's that kind of mentality that I think a lot of people, will go. I feel like with that being in the training, that a lot of police officers and go out there with, and you see that, kind of echoed in just how people who, stand for the Blue Lives Matter movement and all that. Well, if you had to face all of these dangers every single day, not every day is going to be a dangerous day. You could have a day where you don't get anything but like a trespassing calls or whatever, like you can't expect that every single day is going to be a murder, especially when most of the time you have a specialized unit that deals with this.
Oh yeah. And like some of the statistics I've looked at, like policing over the years has gotten safer. Like the population of the U.S. has gone up. The amount of guns per capita has gone up, but yet the police deaths per capita have gone down. And like, I don't want to say this like I'm some big badass or something, because I don't think my job is all that dangerous either, but like, I deliver food. Like, I'm 3 times more likely to die from an on-the-job incident than a police officer will. Like, delivering food from restaurants to people's doors. And
Right.
like, I don't feel the need to protect myself. I don't feel the need to see the world as like a dark place that I need to shield myself against. Like, I see the risks that I might have to face, like getting mugged, or I don't know, getting a gun pulled on me at somebody's door or whatever. Like, I take those risks into account, and I don't treat the rest of the world as if it's my enemy just because, like, there's some real like dangers out there.
Like I was saying, one of the big things is if you focus on the negative, you're only going to see the negative. You're not going to see the positive aspects of things.
There's some police training that described like policemen at home as like the fifth branch of the military, and they're there to always prepare for the next giant terrorist attack, and it's some of the same old like scaremongering tactics. Like they talk about like, well, this school in China, like, had all their kids beheaded, and, like, this school in Russia was set on fire, and barely any kids made it out. So if you're not constantly vigilant and prepared for this tragedy to happen at home, it'll be your kids next. Like, that kind of rhetoric. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's ridiculous. I mean, I'm sure we can both agree that that's ridiculous. We do have we have a military. We have our, like I said, our 5 branches: Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, and Coast Guard. We also have a National Guard. So if we need a militia to operate on our home turf, we have our National Guard in every single state. The police do not need to be militarized in the way that they are. I mean, maybe having a small special weapons and tactics unit would be beneficial to, if you have a county that has its own. So the way our state is broken up is into counties. The county that I reside in, if we had one specific task force, because they could be moved pretty much within any area within about half an hour to an hour, and I don't see a reason, because we have just the same way that fire companies are too. Like maybe if we have like 2 or 3 units that are specifically designated to specific, they call them boxes, throughout the county where they would respond to, that would make sense to me. But it doesn't make sense to have, an entire municipal police force with M16s. I don't get it. You have your service pistol. That should be enough. You don't need a shotgun. You're not conducting trench work.
Oh, 100%. Like the majority of what you should be doing is really like talking to the citizens, like instead of seeing them as like an enemy force that has to be like controlled, corralled and stuff, you should be getting to know your community, know the people that you're patrolling, figure out their problems and their issues and like what they need. I have this crazy idea that, I don't know, the police are government agents, so maybe they should advocate for your constitutional rights instead of talk you out of having your own constitutional rights. And like, it all just seems so inefficient. It's not working for anybody. Like we can't keep doing this. Do you remember your thought process? What may have been the final straw or the last thing you found out before you decided, yep, this career just ain't for me. I don't like what I'm seeing here.
To be quite honest, I wasn't one for doing paperwork all the time. Which was one of the things that kind of steered me away from it. But it sounds so cheesy, but I started listening to punk rock music. I started hanging out with kids that would have been considered the ne'er-do-wells or the ruffians in the community, and they weren't that bad. Like, they were just normal people, and just going to school every day and seeing the people that I was around were some of the worst people that I've ever had to deal with. Like, I couldn't, it was one of those things where, when you start to read the very core tenets of the U.S. Constitution and they're not lining up with what you're being taught by your criminal justice educator, because that's the thing, like, those are what our laws are supposed to be based on, like, you can argue that it goes all the way back to Hammurabi's Code or whatever, but in the U.S., it's the Constitution. And when you see that people are not treated with the respect that they deserve, and they're not treated properly under what is supposed to be the color of our law, why would I ever want to step foot into that career where I have to make a difficult decision regarding how someone's life is going to go for the, because once you get that brand of criminal, no matter how small it is, it sticks with you. So for my personal experience, I have a simple assault on my record because I got into a fist fight. It was a mutual fist fight. But that is something that has come up. It came up in a job interview recently for a customer service position, and that was almost a decade ago. I'm like, well, I mean, it's a phone position, so I don't see how it's an issue. They're like, well, no, we can't hire you because of it. It's like, well, I mean, there's no, at least in the United States, it feels like there's no coming back from even a minor infraction of the law.
Yeah, and that's a part of it that I don't feel is talked about often enough. Police murdering people, like, that's talked about a lot, and police brutalizing people, that's talked about a lot. Like, and they should be, because it's a horrible event. But something that I see a lot is police almost talking people out of their own rights and freedoms. I wonder, how much of that is instructed. Hey, if they start to ask these questions, just say this, because technically if they say this and that, then you have to do this and that for them. And
even at the high school level it was taught. So getting people to, police are allowed to lie. It's not, are you a cop? Yes. It's are you a cop? No, wait a minute. Like, an undercover cop's not going to tell you they're a cop. They don't legally have to tell you they're a cop. It's a misconception that we have in the media. But one thing that, the Miranda rights don't have to be necessarily read at a specific time. But, I know my rights, I'm going to remain silent, and then the police officer will continue to talk to that person, try to provoke either anger or, some kind of information out of them. So one thing that, and you see it, you see it on shows like Cops, where cops start to make fun of people, they make comments like, what are you two guys doing out this late? Oh, you just hanging out in the back alley? What are you two gay? That's completely off base. It's not professional. It's not something that you should be doing. But they're trying to elicit a reaction from that person and start to make them violent, because if they don't have anything on them, and they get them to swing on them, at least they can charge them with assault on an LEO, law enforcement officer for those who don't know. But they can elicit some kind of response, or they can get them talking, and they will continue to do it. And in that situation, as we've all been told, just be quiet. Shut the fuck up.
Some of those same attitudes, I think some of those prevent, cops from speaking out when they see, misconduct happening in front of their eyes. That whole thing that's instilled in you of, you better goddamn well stick behind your brothers and all that. I think some of that prevents cops from coming forward. And maybe if that wasn't instilled so hard, maybe one of those cops that was with the man that killed George Floyd, maybe they could have grabbed his shoulder and said, hey, get the hell off his neck. But that solid support your brothers thing seems like it prevents a lot of that.
It's brainwashing is what it is. You're taught to look out for one another because at the end of the day, everybody else is against you. And
what changes do you think would have to be made to make you, comfortable wanting to be a police officer again, wanting to be proud to do that job again? What would it take? What would get you back in that school to train for it, I guess?
I'll be honest with you, I don't think I ever could go back. I mean, one, my health is not at that level, but assuming, in a perfect world, assuming that I was, it would have to be 100% different. I mean, it would have to be the idealistic police unit where it is about, we don't focus in our country so much on rehabilitation as we do on punishment, and I feel like that is a huge issue. We should be looking at rehabilitating our criminals, not just putting them on timeout, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're giving them, 2 years for whatever to sit in a jail cell and think about what they've done, or, go on parole and, still be in the community and think about what they've done, or we're finding them monetarily, but we're not giving them life skills training. I mean, in some prisons you will find still things like that, but that's not the focus of our criminal justice system. And I think if we changed it to, eliminating recidivism or repeated crimes, getting people to stop committing the same crime over and over again, I think that would be one of the places that I would be more comfortable working for a police, as a police officer. I mean, even now, I'm still interested in security. I've just shifted from being interested in police work to computer work. So I'm now more interested in information security than I am in physical security because it's not as high risk. I would much rather put myself in that line than I would, put myself on the street and have to deal with people every single day who hate my guts because of all of the atrocities that people who are wearing the same uniform are committing. I mean, we allow police officers in this country to do things that we don't allow soldiers to do in other countries.
Yeah, like literal war crimes, like things that go against like multiple treaties and conventions. We allow police officers to commit against, the American citizens.
Yeah, I mean, tear gas it's not acceptable. It's not a thing that you can use in war, if I'm not mistaken. I like I said, my experience is very limited there as well, but chemical warfare is not acceptable, and it is something that we employ on protesters whenever we see feasible. I don't know, it's just disgusting to me. I can't imagine working for an institution anymore that does that kind of thing, especially when you're taught at the very beginning, and that's what it is. At the very beginning, I was taught every man is innocent until they've gone before a judge, and then you start to get deeper and deeper in it, and it's like, well, sometimes they're not.
And sometimes extrajudicial justice has to be done to get, those bad people off the street and all that stuff.
Right, yeah. Can you turn a blind eye to this action because in the end, isn't it better for the community that that's not happening anymore?
Well, like, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's a really kind of nice way to leave off things. I think it goes back to something I've been arguing with since the death of George Floyd, since, advocating for these things has gone into full bore for a lot more people. And that's, abolishment is really, I think, a reasonable answer. And, it's a hyperbolic phrase, and it sounds like super extreme, and you sound like, you sound like a hardcore leftist when you say abolish the police, but like, if we put the means aside, every level isn't working. It's not working for the citizens, it's not working for the police, it's not working for the criminals, the only people it's working for are the people who benefit off of it, the people who make profits off the prison industrial complex. It's just, it's a house built on a foundation of sand. Like, in order for things to be good again, we have to totally rethink what we want justice to be. And it's not what it is right now, because right now we're just creating systems where we lock people up for profit, and we try and keep that system going as powerfully as possible. And it seems so backwards. I'll let you have the final word, Lee. I guess, what would you like people to know as somebody who's been through a chunk of vocational law enforcement training yourself? What should, I guess, the average person know that may all the way believe that cops are a part of the problem?
Basically, what I want people to know is that you're right. There's, when you say that not every cop is a bad cop, you're not wrong. There are a lot of good cops out there, but they're not going to be good cops until they start speaking out against the bad cops. Until we have a way to filter out those people who are doing the wrong things, there's no way that we are going to be able to build a trustworthy police force. You can't have, it is exactly the idiom, one bad apple spoils the entire bunch. If you have one person that is doing wrong in your precinct or in your police organization, you need them out, because you can't be complicit in their ill deeds and then say that you're a force for good.
Alrighty, I think that's a great way to end this off. Thank you very much, Lee, for taking the time and thinking back on old memories about like things you've gone through for, the sake of perhaps opening a few people's eyes and ears. Alrighty, that's the interview. Thank you to Lee for reaching out. We sure as hell appreciate the perspective that he was able to give. Make sure to pee after sex to prevent UTIs. You guys have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.